Hey everybody, David Costello here. We're about to dive into the release of capacity planning within Jetpack Workflow. It's one of the biggest updates we've made to the plan view. Really excited to dig in, show my face here for just a second. Hey everybody, good to see you. I can't see you, but you can see me in front of my little bookshelf here. I'm excited to connect. It's obviously a really big release and excited to dive in. Really quick, before we dive into today's update, go ahead and type into the chat right now. Let me know that you can at least hear me, maybe even see me. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now here as well. So you should be able to see everything here on my screen. So go ahead and type into the chat. Let me know that you could see the screen. I'm looking at the jobs tab right now. So go ahead and type into the chat and let me know where you're calling in from. As most of you know, we're based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we've just gone through probably our first real winter in a number of years. And it's been fun. It's been snowing. We've been able to go out and go sled riding a little bit, but we are very excited because it's actually getting warmer. It's getting sunnier. I really think spring is coming this year. I think it's going to happen again. Very optimistic spring is coming. So let me know where you're calling in from. So we said yes on both. Yes, Jackson, Wyoming, Kentucky, New Mexico. I love it. LA, California, New York, Sydney, Australia. Amazing. Amazing. You know, when the world opens up, I have to get to Australia. We just have so many great firms over there. Colorado, Ontario. Another person calling in from South Australia. Bermuda. Wow, who wants to go to Bermuda right now? Chicago, Wyoming, New Brunswick, Canada, UK. I love it. I love it. Very excited to dive into today's updates. I'm going to go ahead and close out my face here for a second. And we're going to dive in. We've done presentations in the past and we give a little bit of a slide deck beforehand. But today we're really just going to, dive into the product here in a second. But, I wanted to, briefly articulate what we're trying to accomplish here with this plan view. And for folks that have been on a presentation, last year, we went out and we talked with a lot of accounting firm managers about, what was really blocking them from getting the clarity they need as a long time, or in many cases, first time leader, manager, or operator in their firm. We asked them a bunch of questions and really at the end of the day, there's three critical questions you must be able to answer at any given moment if you want to have a real pulse on your firm. And we feel like those questions, and what you all told us those questions are essentially, was what's due? Okay, what do we need to make sure we get done? What's due? What's done? What's been completed? Are we on track? And what's upcoming? And we're going to open up the plan view, and it clearly answers the what's upcoming component. But I think you'll see, and you see this even in the original plan view to some degree, you also get a great sense on what's due and our progress towards that as well. So all that to say, if you ever find yourself in doubt, overwhelmed with work, it's the middle of the week, you don't know what's going on, you can always ask yourself, do I know what's due? Do I know what's been done? And do I know what's upcoming? That's just kind of your critical three questions you can always go back to as a manager to say, am I on the right track? Do I have all the information I need? All right. So having said that, let's open up plan. This is such a big update. There's so many interesting facets of this update I'm excited to dig into. So you should see my plan view. Now, for everybody wondering, plan is a view and a set of features and utility under our premium tier called Scale. And so for folks that have it, you would see this. If you don't have this, you wouldn't see it, which this is what the demo is for. But really, plan is all about giving you an approachable way to answer the question of what's upcoming. When we talk to the market, a lot of firms love the idea of capacity planning and they need to use it, but most of the tools out there are so complicated, so clunky that it was hard to use them. It was hard to get the information you need. And once you saw that information, it's hard to act upon it. So let me walk you through this new view and what we think is the most approachable version of capacity planning anywhere in the market. Okay, so the first thing you're going to notice is a clear distinction that now you can toggle the plan view between tasks and jobs. So right now I'm looking at the task level of everything in the Jetpack Workflow demo account here. I can see my team here on the left-hand side. I can see the number of tasks that have been assigned to them, and I can see the budgeted time that they've been booked out for this week. And you can also see, and this is again back to the original one, you can also see the progress on each team member. So I could see Jim's completed 4 out of 8. I could see Phil's completed what, 5 out of 6. Serena, she's completed 5 out of 12. Tanya, 5 out of 10. So you see these progress bars. And if you want to know how the week's going at the task level, you can view it right here. We've also updated the layout. So if you want to quickly jump between, show me everything that's unassigned this week, great. If I need to see everything unassigned next week, great, this is it. So if you have work coming in, you need to quickly reassign the tasks. You can still do that inside of this view. So if you haven't seen the old one, here's what you can do. If I need to go ahead and drop this over to Phil, great, reassign that task to Phil. If I need to reassign this to Tanya, amazing, I did that. Now here's an update with Plan that we're really proud of, is you can now grab multiple tasks at the same time. So if I want to grab these 3, they're all weekly accounting tasks. They all relate to Phil's coffee, and they're all due this week. Okay, let's take a look. Who has some capacity? I don't know what David's doing, but he has a lot of capacity this week, so let's just go ahead and assign it to him, right? You can see his task item or task count has been updated. His budgeted hours have been updated. Another really cool thing is you can continue to drag and drop this out next week. Now, we do have a safeguard. If you go to drag a task or even a job into the future week, we'll tell you, hey, this task you just moved actually exceeds the job due date. Do you still want to change it? Yes or no? So you can come in and say, if that's okay, yes, I can drop it to the following week. You know, we also updated it. So many of our firms were using this view and they said, well, actually, I want to get more information on this task. I want to see what's going on. Well, now you can click either into the client profile, if I click Phil's Coffee, or I could go directly to the job once I click into it. All right, and you can still maneuver this around between the days if you just need a quick reassignment. Everything here, you can drag and drop, you can select multiple at once, right, and you can assign them out. All right, so this is at the task view. All right, so if you want to know exactly what's been assigned to you for the week, great. You can even come into here and plan out your week. Okay, this is something I want to do Tuesday. Again, if it exceeds the job due date, we're going to let you know and we're going to tell you about it. And you can say, okay, yeah, that's fine. All right, if you're going to be out Friday, you want to drop those to Thursday, great, let's drop those to Thursday. Not a problem. So you can plan out your own week. You can help your team plan out their week for this as well. And again, capacity is updated as you're assigning things out. Now, if you're wondering about your team, your team can only view this if they have the owner toggle permission clicked on in your permissions. If you click that on, they'll be able to open up Plan and view everything. All right, but if they don't have that owner checkbox in the permission setting, only the folks with the owners will be able to see this view. All right, because we get a lot of questions around the jobs, let's go ahead and open up the job view. It's very similar, but the big difference here is you get the big picture view of what's going on at the job level. So I could see right here that we have 3 unassigned jobs due this week. If I want to take a look at next week, it looks like we have 8 jobs, 24 hours worth of work due next week. I can easily jump through this view, broken down by assigned here. And again, this is all at the job level. So if I need to reassign jobs, right, if somebody's going to be out, they're taking a vacation, whatever it may be, I can come into here and I can assign 1 or many jobs out to different people. So if I need to go ahead and assign this to Jim, I can. All right. Now, for those folks that are kind of already into Jetpack workflow and fully set up, an important note here to make is you will only see at the job level people that have the manager permission set up. So if they can become a job quote unquote manager in our system, you will see them on this view. If they are not able to become a job manager, if you haven't set that up in their view, they will not be listed here, because what's that telling our system is they typically don't own a job, and we didn't want to clutter this view with information that's not relevant. So only folks here that are listed as managers will do that. The simplest, easiest thing to do, if you want your team to review everything all the time, is make everybody an owner. Obviously gives them updated access to the application to edit things or update them or potentially delete them. And that's really up to, a firm by firm basis. But if you want to see everybody all the time and access to everything, that's the easiest, fastest way to do it. So this is a quick look at the jobs view. And again, the goal here is just to make it really simple, to take a look at next week and make sure your firm is successful. Take a look at overdue, what you might need to clear out. Like this is one of my favorite views. You come into overdue, looks like we have this. I'm gonna go ahead and bump this out to next week. All right, who else has things going on? All right, David. All right, we'll bump those out to next week. He's not gonna do it this week. 2 weeks out for Jim. Phil, we wanna get an update on that. Now you also notice here is you can still see the labels at the job level. This is something we introduced at the task level. If you add it at the job level in plan view, you'll still see it. So what this tells me is, okay, well, we probably aren't going to get through this one if we're still waiting on a client. I'm going to move this to next week. And you know what? I might open up this job. Again, I can click here and open up that job and see exactly what's going on. Take a look at when was the last email or phone call we gave to this client. And maybe I want to add a task. Maybe I actually do want to change the job due date. I can open it up and take a look. Okay, it looks like 2/11, so almost 10 days ago, maybe more than 10 days ago. Okay, we probably want to add a task. Either I want to alert a team member to do this, or I could even add a task down below. But the great news is you can click in. So the labels give you a great visual identifier. And if something looks off, you can click in and learn more information. If you feel like, actually, we did get that client information, again, you can go ahead and bump it out to next week, right? Again, and the nice thing here is now you can hold down the control button, grab a bunch, push it out to next week, right? You can easily take unassigned work or overdue work and batch move it in this new system, either at the job level or the task level. All right, the final thing I'll mention, because I see maybe some comments or questions, and the final thing I'll mention here, and then I'll open it up for questions or answers, is we have kind of given a visual indicator. If something's done, this is what it's going to look like, right? So we'll highlight the things in gray. We'll kind of pop those out on the screen, so this still needs to go on. But we're going to go ahead and kind of clear this one out to show you that it's been completed. Okay, so you can take a quick look at that. If you want to see exactly what's going on, again, you can always click into anything you see here. All right, I see some comments coming in. I'm going to go ahead and open up the comment screen here for a second, take a look at everything that's going on and see what questions everybody has about the capacity report. As I open up these comments, I'm really curious, again, our approach here is there's many kind of approaches to capacity. And we think, when we looked into the market and what you all told us is we love capacity, but man, these other things are so clunky. They're so confusing. It's hard to set up. It's hard to move. It's hard to navigate. So we want to make this the most approachable capacity view in the industry, something that's just easy to figure out what's going on and give you a pulse on this week, next week, and 2 weeks out. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat. I see some comments coming in. Yes, this is being recorded. We will. Yeah, somebody says I could see workload this week by employee. Can I see it by job title? You mean sort by job title? No, we organize everything according to the due date in the plan screen. But if you need a more macro view, because at the task level, you're going to see all the nuances in the work that's going on. And even at the task level, sometimes I think it's a great view. If you have one-on-ones or team huddles, open up the task view and see how things are progressing, what's done, what's not done. If you need something higher level, that's where we added the jobs toggle. So you can open it up and see this week. And, we've seen, average team members will have about 10 or so jobs due a week. And so this would be the way to, if you need a higher level view, open up the jobs. That's a great question. Somebody says that's what I mean by job title. Thank you. So somebody says, do we integrate with Microsoft? I would say, I believe through Zapier, which is another topic. But if you send us a note, support@jetpackworkflow.com, we have a complimentary Zapier course. So if you want to see how to set up your first Zap connecting Jetpack with Microsoft, I'm unsure all the nuances of how Teams works specifically with Zapier, but I know Microsoft is a big integrator with Zapier, and now we integrate with Zapier. So there might be something there we can do. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at their specific Zap and Zap setup. So I just typed the email into the panel. So let me type the email here. Yeah, and just reach out. And again, we have a great Zapier complimentary course if you want to see maybe the options you have for integrating Microsoft into Jetpack workflow. Great. And I'm just curious, how many of you are using capacity planning today? How many of you are actively looking at schedules every week and getting an understanding of what hours your team, is booked out for a given week? Just type, just type using it in the chat or not using it, and let me know. So go ahead and type using it or not using it in the chat. Let us know. There's a lot of folks, some folks are using it. Yeah, I mean, here's a great point. If you're not using capacity, so I'm getting a couple mixed response here. If you're not using capacity at all or budgeted time at all, we hope that this is the most approachable way to get started with it. If you're not using this view and you want to have access to this view, you want to learn more about your options to have access to this view, the fastest way would be to open up Intercom and just say, hey, I would like to learn more about the plan view. Really excited by the demo, and we'll work with you to get it set up. So I think the fastest way is to open up your Jetpack account, open up Intercom, and then somebody on our success team will follow up with you. We'll make sure we get you set up on scale. We'll get you access to the plan view. A lot of great questions there. Great. Yeah. So anybody who, because we were talking about Microsoft integrations before, if you want to go to the exact Zapier course, one of our team members, Meredith, linked it up in the comments. So if you are interested in kind of integrations at large or driving some automations like around client onboarding for your firm, that course, it's a free course that we put together. And you'll be able to, I think, really have a great understanding of Zapier. It's a mini course, so you'll be able to go through it, I think, in about less than an hour. And it's really meant to just give you the real meat and potatoes of how to get started with Zapier in a quick, simple way. So if you're interested in that, we dropped it in the comments. Yeah, a lot of folks. Yeah, if you're not using Plan, we're getting a couple more comments here. If you're not using the Plan view, you want to check it out, go ahead and open up the chat down below and let us know. We certainly want to make it accessible for you and get you set up on it. And I'll say this for capacity, if you're wanting to get started just kind of in the capacity mindset, I don't think you can go wrong starting here. Obviously, this is why we designed it, which is just taking a look at it every week, what's going on. And what I would recommend, honestly, if you give everybody the owner view, great. They can come in, they can view their own schedule. If you're unsure if you want to do that, I think a great way to test drive this is, again, open it up during your weekly, biweekly, or monthly check-ins with your team, or your daily huddles. We know a lot of firms kind of have adopted this daily huddle mindset. And so, what you can do, I mean, the majority of us are still remote. Maybe we'll be remote, long term now with our firms and businesses. But a lot of you are running Ring Central or Zoom calls or using Microsoft to run these virtual meetings. You could do exactly what I'm doing here today. Is you can open up this screen, Monday morning and share the kind of plan of attack for the week and make sure everybody kind of knows, okay, here's what we're trying to clear out. Here's what's been updated. Here's some overdue things I'm going to need a status update on, or we're going to pull this into this week. I think this is a great view that, worst case scenario, just, use the share screen as a test drive to see if you want to give everybody, kind of owner access to the platform and program. But I think it's a great way to get everybody started and get your team started thinking about this and thinking about, okay, this is the goal I have for this week. I have these 4 jobs, I have these 27 tasks. And the goal is to get this out the door. And you can do this Monday. You can do a midweek check-in. You can open this view and see how things are progressing. If you have a touch base with Serena, great time to touch base, see, okay, there's 2 jobs that have been completed. Want to make sure that everything's going well for Ben Harper and the Patagonia Mug Company. It's a great way to do check-ins. And so my recommendation is, of course, if you don't have this view today, we're happy to get you set up with it. And B, if you do have this view, incorporate it into your meetings. I think it does a lot to drive transparency over the workload and accountability for making sure things get done on time. The final thing I'll mention is I think this view is pretty much the perfect pairing. It's like wine and cheese, right? For anybody that's kind of wine and cheese fans, perfect pairing with the done report. Okay, and especially if you're using capacity, because this view, it gives you a great progress look, but it's really helping you answer like what's upcoming. Are we set up to be successful this week or next week? And the done report, which everybody has access to, you know, if you're on any tier, you have access to the done report. You can open this up and say, great, you know, how are we doing for this month? Right? And I can pull, let me take a look at every team member, you know, months to date, what have we completed? 80% jobs on time, 88% task completion. I can look at the budget at time. So this tells you any kind of bottlenecks that might be coming up in the future. You can look at past quarter, you can look at the past month and say, okay, you know, how are we doing in terms of capacity and work done on time? And then you can go back to your plan view and say, okay, like, how does this help me understand maybe how to reallocate resources appropriately, you know, after we did an audit of what's been completed. So I think this done and plan view, they go really well. You know, I would recommend taking a look at, you know, your done report at least monthly. Maybe you want to look at it weekly or bi-weekly, just see how things are going on, see when things have missed their target deadline and they'll turn red like it was here. And then you can also pull up your plan view and say, okay, I have a sense of how things are progressing, are completed on time rate, are budgeted versus log time if you're using that. And then you can open up the plan view and make sure you're set up to be successful in the future. So I really see if you have kind of two management views in Jetpack that you want to go to just to help with your sanity, it would be the done report and it would be plan and going between these two views. All right. By the way, maybe once the world reopens, we should have a wine and cheese get together somewhere in the world at some point. Bermuda sounds really great. I don't know if we'll make it out there, but maybe it will happen. All right. All right. Well, any other questions before we wrap up for today? Again, I'm really excited for this view. And so if you've been meaning to get clarity on kind of your team progress, your capacity, what's upcoming, this is really what we're trying to drive towards with this view. And so if you want an approachable way to get these answers, I really recommend checking out Plan. Again, if you want to investigate it for your own account, if you want to drive more usage or adoption, maybe you currently have it and you want a refresher, maybe you don't have it, but this really sparked your interest, you know, the best thing is to do is to open up the chat and let us know. All right, looks like maybe there's one more question. Yeah, Joseph, great question. He said, do the drag and drop changes generate email notifications? So just to open up settings here, I think part of it's dependent on how you set up your settings, right? So I think if you have this checked on, you're going to get that. If you have it checked off, you're not going to get that. So I think that's the biggest thing is if you want those to happen, I mean, typically what we recommend is when you're obviously going through initial Jetpack account setup, you probably don't want this because people are going to get bombarded with emails. But maybe now once you're in the system, everything's going well, you can turn these on, and that's a way to you know, alert people that things have been reassigned. So whether you're doing it live, you know, you're doing a Monday touch base with everybody or one-on-one to show them the schedule, or Joseph brings up a great point. You can turn on those email notifications and move them around, and then they'll get an email when that task has been reassigned to them or when that job has been reassigned to them. Great question, Joseph. Yeah, Chris had a great question. If you have recurring tasks, I'm assuming this also goes for jobs, right? Does the drag and drop reassignment affect only the current iteration of the task or all future occurrences of that task? So if you're working with a magic job and the due date there, we're going to let you know. So if you go to move it around, goodness, let me see if I could find one. It will still have a star next to the task name. And if you go ahead and then try to move it, our system's going to let you know, hey, this is one that all the changes are going to cascade down. Now, if you are using the deadline extension date, or if you are using the out date, and that the out date becomes the new deadline, or the extension date becomes the new deadline, you can always change those jobs or tasks very easily, and it's not going to impact or certainly at the job level, not going to impact subsequent work, because you're using the extension date or you're using the out date. But again, if you're trying to change what we call the magic job, which would have cascading changes, it will have a star next to it. And if for whatever reason you don't see the star and you go to change it because you're in the moment, you're just reassigning things quickly, we'll have a modal pop up that lets you know, pretty similar to the task one, that will say, hey, this is actually a magic job. All future changes are going to be impacted by this. It will look something like the modal that pops up here, but instead of it saying task date exceeds the job due date, it will say, hey, you're about to change a magic job or task, and it will have cascading consequences. So all that to say is, if you do, you should not be surprised by it. We try to alert you many times that you will be changing it. And again, you're always, if you're using the deadline extension date or the date out, you're always safe kind of moving those around. Great. And it looks like we have a note here as well, for folks that they want a recording, or, they want the Zapier links. We're going to be emailing all registrants with the recording, the Zapier links, and then details on accessing this plan view within the next 24 hours. So keep an eye out for the email for those links and resources as well. As a high level, as I wrap up, what does everybody think of this update? I would love to give the feedback to Hillary, our designer, that works so hard on this, the developers that work so hard on bringing this to life. Maybe some of them are on the call, maybe some of them aren't. So I'm very curious what everybody thinks of this update, what they've seen here today, what they're most excited about as a potential use case for their firm. So go ahead and type it in the chat right now. Let us know what you think of it. Let us know maybe one or two ways you could see using this view. Obviously, some of you still have to dive in and get access to it, which we're excited to do. But any and all feedback, we love it. So awesome. So Kimberly said, love it. This is exactly what we've been looking for. Rebecca says, love it. Anne said, we wanted this for a long time. We said, useful. Resource management is very valuable. Love it. Chris, we're going to see if we can make the Teams integration happen with Zapier. We'll see. Somebody said, yep, need to get the budgeted times back in. Yeah, and if you want options on how to do that, if you're not sure how to kind of mass update with budgeted times, I think we can certainly work with you, because we do believe it's an important component for scaling. So somebody says, look forward to implementing this. Need some time to familiarize with the tool. Love that it's a job-centered setup. That's great. James said the UI is nice. I love that. Love looking at the jobs at the macro level in the jobs tab. Yeah, we're really excited about this, and really, so much of these updates came from the feedback that you all gave us on the initial release. So thank you to you all for taking the time to give us feedback, to work with us. So much of what you see here today was really just us, doing the initial release and then hearing about impactful updates we can make for this view. So thank you to everybody that's provided feedback. Please continue to give feedback. We're going to follow up with the links in the meantime, get you the recording. As always, if there's anything we can do outside of maybe mailing you liquor during tax season, I don't think that's possible, but anything outside of that we can do to help your firm during this year, always feel free to reach out. Let us know. We're always here right in the smiley face chat in the bottom right. Thanks everybody for jumping on today. I hope the rest of your tax season, if you're in tax season now, goes well. And if not, I just hope the rest of your 2021 is amazing. Oh, wait, we have one more question, and I have to answer this question because it comes from Will, our first customer of all time. So Will said, is there a way to change one occurrence of a job without changing the magic future occurrences? So Will, the answer to that is, if it is a magic one, you'll have the star, obviously. I think the way is, kind of, if you're using the out date, because what's going to happen is if you apply an out date to the job, that's going to be the new effective due date here, right? So if you have an out date that's February 26th, that's what would show. If you have an extension date that's February 26th, that's what would show. And if a job has an active out date or an extension date, you can move that. I don't think you ever have to worry about moving that and having the cascading changes. But for the ones that have kind of the magic job due date, those are the ones. And I think if you want to move that one around, maybe you want to change the due date, I would recommend looking into either the out date or the extension date to do that. Great question. Had to answer it because it was Will, our first customer. He's amazing. He's actually here somewhere around Pittsburgh. All right. Well, great question, Will. Great. Yeah. So somebody asked about longer. How do you look at the year? And I would say you could pull it probably in a metrics download if you want to look at the entire year, or you can look at the done report. The done report gives you 90-day blocks for that as well. Somebody asked, oh, we're getting all kinds of great questions here at the end. It's just when I thought there's no more questions, I love it. There's more questions. So somebody said, what if a job is overdue so that every task is listed for each employee, but is not actually ready to be worked on? So jobs that were due, it's not ready to be worked on. I would say in that case, I would put a label on it that says not ready to be worked on or waiting on client or whatever the blocker is. And I would maybe push that out to the future because it's not really, the hard thing with keeping it overdue is it kind of gives you a false negative. It's not necessarily overdue. If there's a blocker, like you're waiting on the client for something, you've communicated to the client. It's nothing really internal that's blocking that. Somebody says, how do you enter a label? Oh man, this is a great question. So I love labels. They are amazing. They're like a superpower within the application. So I'm going to go through it because I think they're just wonderful. So here's how you add a label. Here's a plus sign inside of the job, and boom, there's your label. You can add it right there. Oops, sorry, it's quick. I got mouse happy over there. So that's how you add a label. Now you'll see that labels are nice because they're color indicators. You can also call these labels whatever you want. Right, so you click edit, you can call this blue label whatever you want, purple label whatever you want. So that would be how you add a label. And if you go back, and that visual identifier, by the way, will be listed everywhere. So I forget who I added that label for. Must be Serena's job. So you'll see that label right here, but that label will also appear on the jobs tab. That label will also appear on the dashboard. And you can filter by labels, and you can view that on the dashboard as well. So I highly recommend taking a look at labels. It's just a really nice way if you need to get more nuanced filters in your firm. So if I would pull everything waiting by a client, I can do that using labels. So you see the visual identifier here. You see that in the jobs list. It's a really, really great way just to add more information to a job. And they're really easy to add on. They're really easy, once, in this case, you get the information from the client, they're really easy to remove as well. So if I open up Serena's jobs over here, all right, let's say weekly accounting work for Patagonia Mug Company, right, waiting on client. All right, we got the stuff from the client. I'll just go ahead into that trash can and the label's gone. So you can add them very quickly. You can remove them very quickly. It's a great way for your team to give you a visual update. So maybe instead of, you don't really need a status update from your team, to tell you you're waiting on a client, they can just add that label and then what's going on. They can add a note. So amazing question. Somebody said, we love labels. Yeah, we love labels too. Joanne, she said, can I add extra? Look, everybody, if I keep talking about labels, somebody's going to come in and kick me in the shins, even though we're working remotely. Yeah, we love labels. I love labels as well. And so I would recommend, keep using labels. If you're maxed out on labels, just keep using them. I can't talk too much more about them. Just know it's something that we love as well. And, stay tuned. Okie doke. Anything else coming up? Yeah, a lot of people are saying they love labels. Yeah. I mean, I just can't speak highly enough of labels. They're great. They're great. I think they're just great visual cues. You get to report on them and filter by them. They're amazing. Okie doke. All right. Well, any other questions? The last time I did this call out, we got 5 amazing questions. Are there any more questions before we wrap up for today? And here's the good news. I feel like this happens with probably any presentation that you've been on. As soon as I hit stop and we go get the recording and you think, oh, I had one more question. Too bad the webinar just ended. You can always open up the chat. The nice thing about us is we're still all humans behind these screens and we'd love to talk to you. So open up the chat, send questions our way. We're happy to answer them or direct you to the best resource. Somebody said, as a best practice, do you recommend making the due date of the job after all of the tasks? Joseph, that's a really hard question to answer. And I think it's a bit contextual to your firm. I think if you have multiple handoffs between tasks, whether, you might want to stagger those out or, look at dependencies, as an example. And so that, but if you have kind of one person and they have 3 tasks in it, and they're typically the ones that are checking off all the tasks, then you're probably safe just to keep it all the same, to be honest with you. So I think it's just a little bit of, figuring out which services, if you have handoffs, if you have a lot of handoffs between different team members in that service, you might want to stagger them a bit. But if it's kind of the same person doing most of the work in there, I think you're fine keeping it all the same. Valentina, we will follow up with you on switching to plan. I'll make a note over here. Certainly have your email, and we will touch base. Because I know we saw the original plan. Valentina is amazing. She gave us great feedback when we did the initial release. So yes, we'll follow up with you. Great call out. Great. All right, everybody. Any other questions before we jump off? The final thing I'll mention, just to make sure there's no more final questions, that's okay if there is if you're not following the podcast, check it out. We have some amazing interviews that came out this quarter. We have some amazing interviews lined up. And while I love every podcast episode, equally, if you will, the one that's getting a lot of buzz in our community, we did one recently with Jason Stats, and we talk about future trends in the industry. And we've talked about different technology trends here. Let's see, 3 untapped technology trends for accounting firms. We talk about things here that I've never heard on any other podcast. I don't hear any other journal talking about. We talk about API wrappers going around legacy tax solutions so you can get data out of them. We talk about so much in this interview. It's a really unique one. And again, people are emailing me and sending me Facebook messages about how neat it was and the insights that Jason had. So if you're not following the podcast, or if you haven't in some time, this is a really great interview to check out. I think we cover a lot of interesting trends, really at the bleeding edge of technology. I think sometimes when we open up the journals, we kind of see what's already out in the market, what's happening. I think this interview is really neat because he kind of gives you a window into what's coming in the next 3 years or so. So anyways, if you're not following that, check out that interview. I'll go back to plan, see if there's any more questions that have come up. Doesn't look like it. Okie doke. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us today. We'll get those resources out to you. Really appreciate the feedback. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on where you're at in the world. And thanks again for taking the time today to connect, and look forward to your feedback. Thanks so much.